Okay, hope I have everything set up properly. And I'm just waiting for YouTube to start so I can shut the sound off. There we go. Damn. Okay. Anyway, let's see. Now, I don't know if Rebekah is lying on purpose. I don't think she is. You would have to wake up and think, oh, I'm going to deceive a bunch of people. So I don't think that's what's happening with her. I think her mind is so blinkered, so shut off, and so used to believing her own rhetoric. I mean, she reinforces her own beliefs every time she does one of these shows and has Cornelius on. Cornelius Hunter, on the other hand, I think he's a lying piece of trash. I think he knows what he's doing. And it's hard to guess what a person's motives are. But they're always talking about science, right? And how they're so scientific. And yet they lie. And here's one of his lies. I just want to play a little bit of this, if I can find it. Okay, so what he does is he puts up paper after paper. He'll put up about 10 papers during one of his talks. And this is one of them that he throws up to defend his position. Large-scale patterns reveal the richest evolution unexplained by microevolution. Microevolution and macroevolution are not governed by the same processes. So they're talking about small-scale evolution. Here it goes.
Richard Douglas Erwin has looked at this and done some really good work on this, as well as many other researchers. He's got this paper, look at the title here, Macroevolution is more than repeated rounds of microevolution. So those are the terms we were talking about a minute ago. The point here is, no, it doesn't extrapolate. The small scale mechanism, small scale change mechanisms do not extrapolate to large scale change. You have to have something else. There must be something else at work to create novelty, to create new genes, to create new body plans, to create new organs. That is not accounted for by the sorts of mechanisms that give us small scale change. There is a disconnect. This is not a continuum. Large scale patterns, he says, reveal a richness to evolution unexplained by microevolution. Of course, he casts this into an evolution paradigm. He's an evolutionist, but he's admitting that, yeah, the microevolution, the small scale change mechanisms don't work. So,
okay, there it is. So he uses this guy's words, and then he's saying, okay, this guy admitted this truth, right? Yet he's an evolutionist, so he doesn't believe what he just admitted. I don't quite know how they use this to support their own position. And the whole time he's implying that there's something else. There's intelligent design, there's creation that's doing this stuff. And it's just kind of maddening. So let me get rid of this. Okay, so here's the article, and it's in a book. This is the book. It is Debates in Contemporary Debates in Philosophy, and it's a philosophy book. This one is Philosophy of Biology, edited by Francisco Ayala. And here is the article. Microevolution and macroevolution are not governed by the same process. But then when you get the book, you realize what this is. It's a point counterpoint book, right? Right before this is chapter 9 by Michael R. Dietrich. It says microevolution and macroevolution are governed by the same processes, right? So, I mean, why didn't he point that out? And what's going on here is kind of an interesting controversy in the extended synthesis and modern evolution. What is it? I don't even know what all the different titles they have for Darwinism is, or whatever they think is Darwinism or evolution. And there's, so it's a point counterpoint sort of thing. And there's, let me see here. So Douglas Erwin, American paleontologist, he has a PhD in geology. He did a lot of work on Cambrian radiation of animals, the origin of new body plans. evolutionary novelties, gene regulatory networks. And his whole point was that there are bigger, like at the macro level, when we get into speciation, extinction, and all of that, that there's a hierarchy going on, and we're looking at much larger scale changes in that, that affect a species. And so if you're looking at it from a microevolution point of view, you're looking at, the mutations, population genetics, change in allele frequency, over time, that you're missing the big picture. You're missing things like when a meteorite hits the earth and wipes everything out, right? Wipes out every single habitat. You're missing the large scale picture. So there's this kind of a tension between two different ways of looking at the philosophy of evolution. And that's all it is. And I mean, they use this as, oh, he admitted that microevolution cannot cause macroevolution. Well, what's happening today at the what we would call the micro level, or what happens in 100-year period, certainly is the causal thing that's going to affect what happens in the next 100-year period. All Erwin is saying is that we need to take a broader perspective and look at it over, thousands and tens of thousands of years, and look at the what's happening in the environment as well as what's happening in the individual organisms. And it's just a different way of looking at the philosophy of evolution. It's kind of cool. So these hierarchies are right here, where we have the levels: the gene level, the organism level, population level, species level, clade level, ecosystem, and then the whole biosphere, everything all together. And he is claiming that we need to look at it more from the top down and from the bottom up. And the truth of the matter is that we look at it in all different ways. When it comes to I don't want to say proving. God, I keep falling into their way of talking. When it comes to evidence for evolution, what we're really looking for is evidence for one particular tiny little part of evolution, like mutations happen. They make changes in the structure of proteins that are very, very minor. And they also make changes in the regulation of proteins. And there's just a really complicated thing that you can develop from the bottom up, right? And you also want to look from the top down as to, what happened overall. But what we're looking at, and I keep saying that we have to look at each individual hypothesis in the entire theory of evolution. You can't call evolution a fact, but you can call one of those hypotheses a fact if you have enough evidence for it and no evidence against it. So anyway, microevolution and macroevolution are misleading terms used by the creationists, and we need to stop doing that. We need to understand what we're doing. We're looking at a very complicated story, right? And for each node in those trees, those phylogenetic trees, each being an individual hypothesis, we have to look at exactly, what conceivably happened to cause one common ancestor to start differentiating into many descendants, that sort of thing. So anyway, they are lying to you. If you're a creationist, you've got to look at this whole picture, and you've got to just stop with this conspiracy bullshit. No, he admitted he was wrong, but he's not going to admit that his pet theory, evolution, has a problem. That's just all bullshit. These are serious researchers writing serious papers, and you have to read both articles. And then not only read both articles, but you have to grasp what both articles are saying. You don't just come up with this rhetoric, right? That reinforces your crazy ass belief, and that's what they're doing. Yeah, someone's lying, deconverted man. Anyway, that's all I have for today. God, should I mention the other thing? No, I don't think I'm going to mention the other thing. There's some. Anyway, I think that's enough for right now. Short one, guys. Oh, links in the description, by the way. You can go out and find this book, and there are ways to buy it and download it and all of that stuff. So go ahead and look for yourself. If you want to engage in the comments, we can get a little more into this, and I can give you a link to the ChatGPT I did on it, where I talk about both articles, and there's just a ton of stuff here about what's really going on. It isn't as simple as somebody admitting there's a problem. Hi, Kafai. Anyway, okay, guys, I'm done. I did my job.